No.
Mhm.
Okay. Hi, everyone, and many thanks for being here in this new joint SWICE and Lantern webinar. We are excited today to have Evelyn Lobsiger, who is a senior scientist at SAF, who will be representing her work at Lantern today. She is both in the SWICE and Lantern consortia. And so she'll be representing Lantern, and we have Jana, who is a PhD candidate at HES-SO, who will be representing SWICE. Both of them are working on new working models in different roles and from different perspectives, and it should be an exciting webinar. So what we'll do is that I'll pass the mic to Evelyn directly, who will start. We'll have a 10-minute presentation, 5-minute Q&A, and then Jana will have also a 10-minute presentation, 5-minute Q&A, and then we just open it up for a discussion. It's a nice and cozy group today, so I'm hoping that we can have an open discussion on these topics. So I think without further ado, up to you, Evelyn.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I'll share my screen in a second. All right. So welcome from my side as well. So we just start and dive into the topic directly. Let's set the stage. Imagine the modern Swiss office company where some employees work at the corporate office, maybe with a desk sharing policy, maybe in a traditional configuration, hopefully not like in the picture below, although this would probably be a quite energy efficient setting. Others are working from home or in a co-working hub. But behind these choices, two key perspectives are important. On the one hand, the employer, and on the other hand, the employee. The employer who provides infrastructures, set regulations and incentives. And about this topic or this perspective, I will talk about. In the second phase of the webinar, Jana will talk about the employee's perspective and about their experiences and motivations. So we look at new working models from two different perspectives. And in the middle, mobility is also, of course, involved in those two choices, whether you work from home or you work in the corporate office building or in a co-working hub. I will use a little bit of storytelling because in Lantern we have introduced this as a tool for communicating our research results. So I will try this out with you. And let's start the story. Once upon a time, a sustainability manager called Lena, working at an insurance company, overheard HR responsible discussing plans to change the company's working models. So she wondered, could these changes also reduce energy consumption? What are the sustainability impacts of new working models? But before diving into the numbers, what she usually does, she wanted to understand HR's motivations behind the need of changing the working models. What were they hoping to achieve with these new models? And can those objectives be aligned with her sustainability goals? So she called the HR manager. For him, it's very clear what they try to achieve. They want to attract and retain talents with modern and collaborative spaces. They would like to improve employee well-being and retention by reducing their need for commuting, supporting work-life balance, and offering, in general, more flexibility. They would also like to enhance collaboration and community building in order to foster innovation within the company. For some units, we also intend to align work schedules with peak productivity times. And all in all, we would like to maximize office use efficiency. So for us, it's not just about space, but also about people and performance. Okay, but still, Lena, the sustainability expert, asked herself, how can we save actually energy while introducing these new working models? What really matters in terms of energy consumption? Is it heating at the corporate office, IT equipment at home, or commuting? To find answers, she calls her colleague she knows from the old times who works in this field, Sebastiano Maltesi. Oh, oops. Oh no. So, luckily, Sebastiano picks up the phone. Ciao, Lena. Those are good questions. And I can tell you a little about what our research team has found out so far in this respect. Because we set out with the objective to evaluate new working models for their potential to reduce energy consumption, while considering both employer and employee impacts. We focused on energy-saving working models and how they integrate with building-related energy measures and adaptable design solutions. So far, our data sources include a comprehensive literature review, expert interviews, and workshops with front-runner companies, and as well an analysis of occupancy rates and energy use. As the occupancy is a key factor that is changed by most of the new working models, we will set the focus on this topic for the future research. Good. So, our insights so far, especially from the literature review, we found 3 domains that are impacted by new working models or that can change the new working models. So it's about space. We can share workstation, we can change office settings into activity-based workstations. In terms of the employers, there are possible reductions due to reduced space and infrastructure, but the effects on the employee side are less direct because they maybe work a little bit more at home as well. And then if we look at location, where it's about working at home or in a co-working space or at a third space. Their employers may reduce energy use by shrinking office space, but employees might see increased energy use at home. Less commuting can help for energy reduction, but there are also rebound effects like longer commutes or more non-work travel. And then when it comes to time, we see sometimes flexible time managements or also a reduction in working hours. Employers can save by reducing operating hours and space needs of their corporate offices. Employees might change their consumption and mobility patterns. But again, rebound effects depend on how they use their extra time. These are the main effects that we found in the literature. And now, what can companies do actually? Some first recommendations coming from the expert interviews and the workshops that we did with front-runner companies. They suggest to combine models, so mix telework with desk sharing to maximize energy savings and benefits, for example. Leverage technology, use sensors and energy data to really optimize the operation of the corporate office buildings. Adapt building, so retrofit and use modular designs to future-proof your offices. Very important, involve employees. build a culture of trust and participation to ensure acceptance of those new working models, and allow for agile changes during the process. And as a last recommendation, customize your approach. So tailor the working models to your organization's culture, infrastructure, and goals. So this gave Lena some first insight, but however, she still wonders to what extent those different working models really have an energy impact on the energy consumption of her specific company. For example, if we close the office on Fridays and everyone works from home, how much energy do we really save? What about heating, cooling, and the knock-on effects? Sebastiano can understand her need for comparing different scenarios and also for getting concrete numbers about saving potential when specific changes in working models are applied. This was also expressed by his collaborating stakeholders within the project. So Sebastiano explains, to answer these questions, we are developing realistic working model scenarios using both Swiss average data and company-specific figures. Our goal is to estimate concrete energy implication across different domains, supporting decision-making for companies and policymakers. For this objective, we are collaborating with other research teams from Lantern, but also with practice partners to ensure the scenarios that we developed and also the tool is usable and helpful for them. We developed so far an overall quantification framework where we have some factors as an input, which are like the working model changes. For example, how many hours you work, how many days you are in the office, how many days you spend at home, how many days you work in a co-working hub, etc. And then we need factors to really calculate the impact that those changes will have. So we need factors in terms of how large are the commuting distances, which transport modes are used, how many square meters of office space per person are at hand. And then, of course, we also need energy-related factors. For example, how many kilowatt hours per kilometer car is emitted or used. And with those factors and input variables, we try to make an energy and a CO2 assessment, where we calculate energy consumption coming from workspace, from travel distances, and from infrastructures. As an output, we would like to calculate energy consumption as well as CO2 per person per year, which could then be, of course, calculated for a specific company. What is important for us is also that we try to account for interactions like more work from home changes the model split for commuting, which we have seen during our literature research. So at the moment, we are working to develop the tool by integrating the different aspects like mobility and building-related energy consumption. So, Lena, if you would like to know more about this tool and if you would like to test and support also the further development of it, join our workshop in June. So I hope you enjoyed this little journey through the working models with Lena and Sebastiano and the HR manager. What we learned so far also in the discussion with different stakeholders and also during our research that we did is that we think it's very important that we combine objectives of the HR, the facility manager, and also the energy management of a company. And we hope that we can support companies and policymakers to align those different objectives and be able to design workplaces that are both sustainable and also satisfying for the employees. So thanks a lot for your attention, and me and my colleague Sebastiano in real look forward to your questions and maybe also discussions.
Thanks a lot, Evelyn. Do we have any questions for Evelyn?
Shall we do the questions together once we hear Jana?
Maybe just if you have questions that are about specifying something or like clarity or that sort of thing, you can ask them now.
Maybe I have a question for me. Yeah, thank you, Evelyn, for the presentation. It's pretty interesting. So I don't know if I missed it or if you said it, but I'm curious to know if you also consider in your boundary conditions, if it is just the company and mobility and the building, or do you also consider how it contributes to the, maybe a larger scale, maybe like 4 or 5 other buildings or like a neighborhood or something? That's
yeah. No, at the moment, like within this scenario tool that we are developing, we won't consider like those surrounding factors and the interaction with the neighborhood or stuff like that. But we saw in the literature review that pretty much, or like all of those relationships between a working model and a possible energy saving is very much depending on such either organizational factors coming from the company or also contextual factors like where you live, how well the public transport system is, if there are incentives from the company to work either in the company or at home, or if they subsidize public transport, if you have a family or not. So there are a lot of like those factors that really have an important impact on the energy saving potential of those models.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Any other clarification questions?
But good question.
All right, then Jana, the floor is yours.
Yes, I will also share my screen. No. So, yes. I will talk about the second point and the individual perspective or the employee's perspective. I try to calculate these CO2 emissions for the individual, for the employees. And this presentation is a part of my PhD project I do at the HES-SO in cooperation with the University of Lausanne. I'm part of the SWICE work package 6, new work and mobilities, and we try to analyze this relation between new working models and mobility. Maybe one point I speak about teleworking. Teleworking means working outside of the regular working space. So in our analysis, we have the assumption that the people are working on a regular workplace and they have also other work locations like working from home, but also co-working spaces or third third places or also on the move, and that means teleworking, all those other locations. But in some cases, also in this analysis, we see the most of the people working from home. And yes, that's all background information for the understanding. So I have a really classical overview, but I will skip them. So and start with these figures. The really overall research question of my PhD is, what does telework have impact on the individual well-being and the sustainability? And I will analyze this research question also from a gender perspective. And the sustainability means the most aspects means like the energy related effects. And I found the conceptualization from O'Brien and Yazdani Alibadi is really helpful for me because it sum up the energy related effects between the mobility aspects, but also like home office and the consumption of the office space, and include all these different aspects. In my point of view, there are also like the non-energy related aspects, like the well-being has also really, or is also really important to consider. So we have some separate publications like the CO2 emissions from the commuting. And then I have a paper work in progress about the living space effects of teleworking. Then we have already one paper about paid work-life balance from the gender perspective to analyze all the non-energy related effects on telework. But this presentation will be on the energy related aspects, and I will consider all the different aspects from commuting, ICT infrastructure, but also like the consumption of space. So, and to introduce these energy consumption effects, I have the assumption that so far the research has mainly has mainly focused on the commuting aspects from teleworking. So there is some research or a lot of research about the commuting aspects. Also from Switzerland, we have seen our first paper with Noah and Timo, but also we analyzed the CO2 emissions from co-workers in Switzerland in 2022. And also there are the Patrick's researcher group with Laura and Patrick. They analyzed the rebound effects that the teleworker have longer commuting distances or they have increased leisure mobility. And this was the main focus on the teleworking research. And to get the full picture, we have to analyze all the different aspects of teleworking and to see these aspects. In the literature review, I see there are different aspects as like the direct effects from not commuting or less commuting trips, but also we have indirect effects, as mentioned, the rebound effects with longer commuting distances or more trips for other purposes, but also we have seen some discussion about the living space. So teleworkers have on average larger homes, and this has also energy consumption implications. And yes, the aim of this paper is to analyze from the sustainability perspective teleworking should not increase the energy consumption due to the other aspects like the ICT infrastructure or added transportation or higher living space consumption or also working space consumption. And we consider the following factors like the commuting distances, the number of ICT infrastructure. We ask the people how many monitors you have on every work location, for example. And also we ask them about the workspace in square meters, how many or how large is your office, and so on. So we made a survey in collaboration also with the WPW2 of the SWICE consortium, and we made or the survey captures all these aspects of mobility, energy use, lifestyle patterns, and also the well-being aspects. And we had some different recruited strategy. We asked the Suurstoffi residents, as this is our living lab. We recruited some co-workers via Co-working Switzerland as a project partner. We spread the survey on our SWICE project and personal networkers, but the most of the part we had a market research institute. They run our survey in the end of November 2024. And for this analysis, we have all around 1,000 surveys we can use. So this is the basis, the baseline. All this part or the study participant had a lot of report different information. So on which day they work on which work location. They give us the postcode of every working location, so we can combine this information to the working distance. We know the mode of transport for commuting to the different working spaces. We know the number of ICT infrastructures they have. We have also the workspace in square meters at home, in the co-working space, and the regular workplace. And with this information, I combine the information with CO2 equivalent factors. I know it's very critical because we don't have the information about the building, how the buildings were built, or what devices they use concrete. But I guess it's the first baseline of information. What are the rates of the different aspects of CO2 emissions? And I calculated the different informations with the CO2 factors. And so I have CO2 emissions in total. But first, we have some descriptives also about the survey, and we see the most of the people work at the regular workplace and at home. A minority also works at co-working spaces, but this is really a small number of study participants. Then we have some difference compared to the Swiss average in our sample. The teleworkers have longer commuting distances. They use more the public transport. That it's a good fact, actually, because it's more sustainable than the car. But on the other side, they have also larger apartments and and they need more living space compared to the Swiss average. And we have a little bit fewer women or slightly older employees compared to the Swiss working population. Yes, but I guess the first two aspects of longer commuting, more use of public transport, and larger living space are the important one for the energy consumption. So I calculated the total CO2 emissions, and we have a number of 1,300 kilogram per person per year, and we know they have in average 2 work locations, as almost all people work at home and from a regular workspace. Then I calculated the mobility CO2 emissions, like the 400. This is significant lower than the Swiss average with the 700 CO2 emissions per year. We see the people have longer commuting distance compared to the Swiss average, but they use more the public transport. So it's a more sustainable way, and therefore the CO2 emissions are lower to the Swiss average. But on the other side, we have also the space consumption calculated with the average size of workplace at the regular workplace, also at the co-working space, and also with the room at home. And there is interesting that 2/3 of the people have a separate room for teleworking at home. And this separate room is slightly larger than the other rooms at the regular workplace or at the co-working space. That means it uses also more energy consumption. And then we have also the ICT infrastructure. This part is slightly slower in total than the other 2, mobility and space CO2 emissions, with the 300 kilogram CO2 emissions per year. But we see that on average, the people have more than one external monitors. They have also multiple printers, and I actually assume they have one laptop that they can telework or work remotely outside the office space. And the doubling of the ICT infrastructure, there are some hints that they use also more energy. But all in all, it's interesting to see the mobility and the other aspects, as the other aspects like the space consumption and the ICT infrastructure have almost like the 1/3, a share of 1/3 per aspect for the total CO2 emissions. And I guess we have to discuss about the separate rooms at home, that it means like they really need more space at home. This has a large impact on the CO2 emissions and the resource consumption, especially in the long term. But also the ICT infrastructure has a significant impact, as they duplicate all the infrastructure. And it would be really interesting to have for the space and ICT infrastructure also national data to compare the teleworkers with the non-teleworkers' energy consumption. And yes, that would be interesting. So my next step, they would be to modeling these factors. What are the important factors that explain the CO2 emissions of the teleworking, and also discuss the well-being aspects, how it's important to have a separate office room, or how different work locations impact the well-being in this, the well-being of the individuals. And to conclude, we have many different aspects that impact the environmental and resource consumption. And from the sustainability perspective, it should not lead that telework have a higher impact on the energy and research consumption. There are some first hints that teleworking has some rebound effects due to the longer commuting distance, duplicated ICT infrastructure, the more space consumption. These have to be really systematic analyzed and also compared with Swiss or Swiss data to have a larger population, and also to analyze this effect in the long term, how it changed in the recent years. Yes, so many thanks for your attention, and I will close my presentation.
Thank you very much, Jana. Sebastiano, you have a question.
Thank you, Jana. It was very, very interesting because I really like the CO2 as a parameter to measure the action of the people, and it actually helps in having a single number representing a person. I was super curious about the infrastructure part, the ICT. Sorry. Because from that result, it seems that it's 1/3 of the result, or a little bit less than 1/3. And what do you consider in that? Only the desk, like computer and the monitor and the printer, or do you consider? I saw that there is no server. I saw somewhere there. Okay, monitor, printer, desktop, computer,
Yes.
number of device. Okay, so
Yeah.
the setup, let's say.
Yeah. It's maybe, it's maybe a little bit over-evaluated because I don't, I use only the number of devices.
Yeah.
Multiplies with the CO2 factors. So if somebody have 2 monitors at the regular workplace and at home, this person would not use these 2 monitors at the same time.
Yeah.
But in my calculation, I simplified so far this step, and I only calculated like 2 times. But maybe I can correct, but I don't know. It makes the calculation better, or it's only how would you say, eine Scheinkorrektur.
Yeah.
It's
No,
like
no,
it
it's
seems to be
interesting.
better, but it's with so many insurance that I don't know what devices the people use. So it's maybe the simplest way, but the simplest best way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was curious because it seems a very high value, not depending to one to monitor it has the same emission as like going to work by car for one here, and the emission of the car usually are pretty much high, and the consumption of a monitor is not super high, but maybe it consider also the gray energy to produce the product and everything. So maybe
Yes.
that's the
Of
reason
sure.
why.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, we have Sasha.
Yes, so thanks actually to both of you, Evelyn and Jana, and I have 2 short comments and a question, and the question probably addresses both of you. So the first comment is, of course, there is a correlation that people who telecommute, who are generally more privileged people, have bigger apartments, but that's not causation, and there's no reason for that to be bigger. So it's just a coincidence of where we stand. The second thing is how much telecommuting costs today is, of course, interesting, but it's not really important. What is important is how good it can be if you do it properly. So there's really no reason why there should be any higher ICT cost, because of course there's no need to replicate devices or anything else. So the question is, today there's relatively little telecommuting, but if we generalize this, then we should do it right. So the recommendations how to do it right are, of course, very, very interesting. And the question is, I'm working and will be presenting in 2 weeks in Winterthur a vision for a more radical transformation of our spaces, working and living and services, etc., which should actually allow us to stop building and reconfigure everything we have. And one of the good upsides is that we could get rid of cars completely by providing a lot more local work at various scales. So what I would really be interested in that, and perhaps we could collaborate on it, is what are really the best practices. So for example, if we have a shared space in a building, say 40 people sharing 1,000 square meters or something, and then they have various shared spaces there. What would be the best practice to design a co-working space so it will work in the best way for productivity, well-being, etc.? If we do it at perhaps a communal scale, so at the neighborhood, not inside the building, what is the best practice there? Should we have both at the communal level and at the building level, or should we just use one of those two? Is there some best practice there? And then what does it mean for companies? The company's all in the wrong place because you have some stupid accountant who thinks that it's cheaper to go somewhere in the middle of nowhere instead of someone who is actually thinking about this. So historically, the company is all in the wrong place. So what does it mean for companies? What part of their premises should they move and how to manage them? And what part should they simply abandon and simply move to teleworking? So I'm really interested in practical recommendations for companies, for communes, for buildings, and actually for employees that we could use as best practice. So I don't know what you have today or what you will have in the future, but I'm interested in all of these things.
Thank you, Sasha. It's okay if I start. You can compliment Evelyn. Yeah, that's a really good question. And I guess we have to consider if more people are teleworking or working from home, especially, that they don't use and separate workroom at home. For sure, we don't know if they use also as a guest room or something else and combine different tasks in this room. But I guess we should discuss this aspect that many teleworkers have a room at home, and that we can save some living space when we are using some co-working spaces or community spaces near to the living space. Yes, and we made with the WP6 an intervention on this, that our residents in the co-working residents of the Suurstoffi work for 3 months in the co-working space at Suurstoffi to analyze these aspects, if they can reduce the living space in the long term due to the fact they work in a co-working space. Yes, I guess it should be more in this direction, that we share the working space in a other space than at home with other people. Yes.
From the company perspective.
Sorry?
From the company perspective, is there anything that you would like to add?
From the company perspective, I think it's interesting to see what companies are trying to develop to allow their employees to work nearer to their home. So like an insurance company is thinking about allowing people working in their how to say, like they have a lot of small offices in different towns, and to allow their employees to work in those specific offices, although they are not actually part of this unit of these offices. So like that would be something that where we can optimize commuting and reduce travel distances for the employees. And then what what came into my mind is that long-term work package 6 also works about mobility, and they are working together with a housing association who incorporates exactly this, like they provide co-working spaces, and they want to analyze and evaluate if those co-working spaces really contributed to the reduction of mobility needs of their residents. And I think there are some other neighborhoods, mainly owned by housing cooperatives, that already have such such models that you can work in the neighborhood, or that you can flexibly rent one room for a certain time when you know, okay, I'm working always on Friday, or I don't know, or for 3 months, and then get rid of the room if you don't need it anymore. So those are like examples that came to my mind. Yeah. And maybe some other development that is taking place in, like, I think all over the world, but also in Switzerland, that companies rent flexible offices for their employees at different sites. So that, for example, Flex Office, it's a company that provides offices to companies, and companies can rent, like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 offices in Zurich and 4 offices in Bern, and allow their employees to work there, but then also work at their actual corporate office for some days. So that's also a solution that is, maybe helpful to reduce mobility.
Thanks to both, and let's discuss in 2 weeks in winter.
Yeah.
All right, I think it was Cedric first and then Eliana.
Yes, so in work package 7, we are interested into the larger impact of lifestyle changes and energy sufficiency. And so I have a few questions regarding the data you have been using and generating. First of all, for the survey, you mentioned, Jana, did you connect that to the lifestyle segmentation that was performed in work package 1? Or is it possible to connect them, or it's too...
Yes, I guess it is. We have like the same lifestyle items in the survey, and I don't know if Timo or Noah would do that, this connection or the analysis compared to the lifestyles, or taking into account the lifestyles.
Because
But
for us,
for me, it's more like I would like to overall evaluate the CO2 emissions. Yes.
Yeah, I understand. Because for us, it will be very helpful if the different data you were showing us were corresponding to specific shares of the population across Switzerland.
I guess that would be possible. Yes.
And then this data set, is it possible to put it on the Switch drive that David was setting up for SWICE, or is it private data that cannot be shared within the consortia?
Oh, I would ask Timo.
Yeah.
I don't know if he shared already or not, but I guess it's part of the SWICE project. And if you ask, it would not be a problem, but don't,
It would be
I
nice
don't know
to
actually.
have a centralization of the data that have been generated. And finally, I have a question more towards Evelyn and Sebastiano. So I saw you were modeling the energy impact on specific buildings, which is great. So that then the idea was more about, did you already start generating these scenarios, this energy consumption? Okay, good. Do you have some documentation around it, or some data to share so that we can see how we can try to extrapolate that to the national level and see the interaction with the grid and how much other
Well,
capacities we have to deploy.
that's super interesting. We started the analysis of scenarios, and we actually, on the side of the building, we are analyzing some generic building for now. So we just made 3 representative building, which are actually 6 because it's a new building, old building, small, medium, large. So we have a little bit of different setup. And then we are doing a dynamic assessment with Energy Plus. So we are able to. The problem with these scenarios is that we are shaving little differences among the scenarios. So, like, one is we are going to the office 70%, the other is we are going to the office 60%. So, for us, the calculation on the energy, it's very detailed because otherwise it's you don't see the actual difference in the calculation if you don't go in that detail. Eventually, sooner or later, we will be able not to stick with these 3 buildings, 3 random buildings, but we will just have a set of input that we can modify as we please. And like the occupancy, the size of the building, the orientation, the how can I say, the location actually of the building, which now are in Lugano, for example. And if we extract a random data set out of these, we can share it, no problem. I think it will take a few months, but yes, absolutely.
Are you coming to the SWICE conference, Sebastiano?
Yes.
Then we can follow.
Yeah, not to the SWICE. I will be second and third. We will meet probably on Monday.
Okay.
And we are doing the same with mobility, so to match these scenarios, so we can have like Jana showed the average day of someone or average year of a person. So we will get probably similar result, hopefully.
Good. Looking forward to discuss further with you.
Yeah. It will be a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay.
Shall I jump in straight away? Thank you, Evie and Jana, very much for your presentations. I have a question or two for Jana. Jana, I just wanted to understand a little bit your calculations, and I don't know if I missed it. Do you have the percentage that a person is in the home office, and do you use that percentage already to calculate their energy consumption in the office and in the home office?
Yes, we have it in the data. So the people are give us the work days and the work locations. But then it's not in the calculation because the home office don't need any commuting energy or is no commuting. So this CO2 emissions for the mobility only calculate the commuting. So it's only calculated on the commuting to the regular workplace or to the co-working space.
But you also showed energy consumption for the office spaces in the home office.
The space.
Yeah, because if I'm not
yeah,
at
yeah.
home, right, then
Yeah.
I don't use all that energy. So assuming that I'm working 20% from home, but
Yeah.
80 in the office, right, in order
Yeah.
to have a fair calculation, I think you need to factor that in my mind. And I was
Okay.
also wondering,
Yeah,
I'm sitting in an office, right, and I'm wondering, how on earth am I going to work out what my square meterage is? Because I'm not very good with that, and I'm sharing the office with other people. So did you ask people how many people they're sharing the office with? Is this the whole room? Did you dive into the background?
Yeah, the really concrete question was how many square meters do you use by your own? So if you share an office room, then you have to calculate if there are the 10 square meters, you share it by 2, then it's like around 5.
Yeah.
And that's for sure a limitation of the calculation. it's like eine Schätzung. I don't know the
Yeah,
in
no, I
English.
mean, you have that with a lot of things, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but for me it was more interesting to have the weights between mobility, space, consumption, to have this calculation. Yes. And the assumption about the space was that the energy use is the same as I use it or not. So the people don't cool down or heat more or less because yeah, it makes
But
easier. Maybe it's wrong, but maybe it's also not right. So it's yeah, an easy calculation.
sure, but it's a huge assumption. I mean, I don't heat my office to the same temperature when I'm not in it, and I don't.
Really?
But
Yeah,
do you change it
yeah.
to the
When I,
higher or to the
yeah,
lower?
yeah. I switch it off
But
in the
then on
evening when yeah,
Mhm.
because I'm not in it. So I only
Yeah.
heat it when I'm in my office. And then, of course, I mean, we're running out of time, but yes, there's a lot of assumptions in there, right? Okay, I just wanted to understand it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's an easy assumption that it don't change. And the data is from the SEO Effizienzpfad. And I guess it's an average on the Betriebsenergie. And it's like an average between you cool down or you're heating and something else. And it's more like the space you need. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, both of you. It's really interesting.
Maybe one very last question from Sebastiano.
No, that was just an appreciation of this problem because this assumption are actually my very big concern since the beginning, and yes, Iliana, and yes, Jana, I really like this. I really do not like this problem. I mean, most of the time, your presence or absence doesn't matter because not everybody is so lucky that can turn on and off the heating when it's not actually in the building, in a residential building or office or somewhere else. And so that's a problem which is either technical but also, let's say, organizational, let's say, or technical because the equipment cannot be allowed that. Like my open space here, it's 30 people, so my presence here change a bit the calculation, but not so much. And yeah, not to be long, but take into account these opens a set of possibilities, which is very, very big. And it's difficult to, let's say, calculate. Sometimes the remote worker, let's say, influence the mobility, but does not influence the ICT because you're working on the same setup at home and in the office, and does not influence the building, or even it influence in a bad way the building because I'm not generating heat in the office, so they actually require more energy. So I have no solution on that, of course. Yeah.
This is actually a good point, Sebastiano. If done right, telecommuting should get rid of commuting emissions and energy and not change anything else if you use the space properly.
Yeah, or do not change or change a little percentage or just shave it a little. Yeah, but I, again, do not have a solution for that, of course.
Okay, thanks everyone, and special thanks to Evelyn and Jana for their presentations, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one.